Welcome. I'm just working in the shop here this afternoon, continuing on this 1901 Model A, and of course Landon in the back is working on another piano, an M. He's stringing, but a little bit of background noise, but I'm sure you don't mind. And I'm just going to get the mobile cam up and going here. Mobile cam up and going. And I was going to tune this piano really quick last night in preparation for leveling the strings, but it turned out my wife needed me back home at that point, so I abandoned it, and now we're back. So the reason I want to do a really rough tuning on this, just to get things close to pitch before, because then I need to know are the strings level. But sometimes if you tighten them significantly more, a little bit more or less, it'll affect the height of the string. And I want to see at the tension it's going to be at, or very, very close to it, what is the level of those strings relative to each other, the three strings. And then I'm going to make sure that mates with the hammers so that the hammer hits all three strings at exactly the same time. So that's what I'm working on next. And for a quick rough tuning, I'm just going to use the Varituner software, which I like a lot. And I'm going to tune it 15 cents high. I think I went through a good portion of the piano last night, but just didn't get it all. So we'll see where we left off. Later today and tonight, I'm going to go back to the Steinway dealer and work on that Model D again. I'm excited to see what the lacquer did to it. So at this point, I'm just tuning it through to 15 cents sharp, and a lot of the notes will fall down from that, but that's okay. They'll be as close as I want them to be for this initial string leveling. And then, so I think at this point, what Landon's doing is probably more interesting than what I'm doing. So I might show you what he's doing first. If that's okay, Landon. Is that okay? Let's bring you over to Landon. So Landon is the man. He does everything. So we're stringing this piano. This is an M. We're stringing it for another technician. We put a new pin block in it, right? No, we didn't on this one. This one we used larger pins because that's what they wanted in this case. And the piano was refinished, and so Landon's just prepping it to string, and he's going to put in A graphs. Is that could be in your way, Landon?
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I'll just let you go watch Landon what he's doing. He's aligning those A graphs that the strings pass through so that they're perpendicular to the string, but they have to be tight. And it's real hard to get them tight enough where you're not worried they're going to be loosened and cause some, whatever with the string vibrating, or or you don't want to break them. And if they're too tight, you break them. So they have to rotate to exactly the right position. And if Landon wants to explain any more, he can. But anyway, you can just watch him for a bit, and I'll be tuning.
Okay. So right now I'm just doing an initial tightening since I just put all of these in. And then I'll be going through and fixing the rotation. Okay, now at this point they're all pretty tight, so I'm going to go through and fix some of these ones that aren't aligned yet. I can't tighten them anymore or else they'll break. So what we do is pull it out, and we're going to take some material off of this bottom part of the A-graph to allow it to rotate in a little bit more. And we'll use this to do that. If I stick the A-graph in and rotate it, there's these sharp blades on top that remove some of the brass material from these. So now if I put it back in, currently looks like that. These ones are oriented correctly, this one is not. I've removed some material, so I should be able to turn it in. And after I turn it in a little bit, it's now lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for all of these.
This is why I think it's useless to tune it before you put the dampers on. Then then you're gonna tune it again just before you level strings and knock it out to your instrument. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's harder to tune if it's not damping too, I guess.
Yeah, so it takes longer. It's harder to do.
Yeah. Some of these have more to go than others, so I'll be a little bit more aggressive in taking off more material with these ones. Whereas if it has a little bit more to turn, I'll take off less material. At this point, we only have 3 left that are out of line, and they all need about the same material taken off, so I'm going to do them all at the same time.
Do you have a guitar pick laying around still?
Possibly.
See when I might want to use it.
Okay. So this one, they're all oriented correctly. At least they're pretty close. They might need to be adjusted a little bit more once the strings are actually on, but they're good for now. Now we have this section to work on.
You can take a lunch break at some point.
Yeah, probably pretty soon.
I'll buy you lunch if you take me back to my car at that point.
Okay.
Stuff on the chat here. Let's see if this creates any feedback. Landon's got the other thing here, but it looks like we have some comments in the chat from Mark here. Hi Hiram, thanks for your videos. I just wanted to check, how often should or can a concert grand have its strings tapped down and leveled? So I'm trying to decide, when you say strings tapped down, you mean if somebody were to try and tap down the speaking length of the string is the part that makes the note. If you meant tap down in order to be level, or are you talking about tapping the tuning pins down so that they're tighter? Because if you're talking about hitting the strings down, trying to get them lower, I don't like to tap down. I like to pull up, because the bearing point, these A graphs actually that you can see Landon's doing in the other screen, the strings pass through that brass and they travel upwards. So we want to make a more positive contact with that brass for a clean termination, if anything. So usually, yeah, the strings, okay. So usually, I'm pulling up. Maybe if I just pulled up and I went too far with it, I made a bend in the wire essentially that made that, then I'm basically just kind of removing that bend. But how often? I mean, really, I don't think you need to do it more than a couple times in the initial setup process, prep process of the piano. And from there, then you could work with the hammers to make sure that the hammer hits all three strings at the same time by taking off felt, so that it hits all three strings, because by then you should have the strings pretty level. That being said, I mean, you could probably tweak them. It's not going to hurt them or break them or anything ongoing, but I wouldn't try and tap them down a lot. I don't think you'll have much success leveling. I don't think it'll move very much after a while. So anyway, that's a good question though. So I go to I'll maybe, when the piano's newly strung, I'll start working on the strings, when it's fairly new, within a year or two of the piano's life. And then after that, I'll work on the hammer to make that contact. Jeffrey Boyle says, the power drill looks scary, Landon.
The torque turned really low.
He's got the torque turned really low. These are brass screws. They can, the threads can get bunged up easily, but it's just to quickly run it in and out. Okay, and Mark, you're talking about at the bridge. Do the strings not rise up on the bridge pins? Okay, so if you're tapping down on the strings at the bridge, because sometimes when the strings vibrate, they can kind of climb up the bridge pins a little bit and not make as firm a contact with the bridge, which the bridge is totally responsible for transferring that vibration energy into the soundboard. So you want really positive contact there. It just depends. If you're in an area where the climate is moving that soundboard all around, and if that makes a difference in the tone of the piano to do that tapping, then you just need to do it. It's not going to wear the string or anything. As long as you don't tap too hard, it's not going to shorten the life of the bridge. So I think you could do that as often as you want, but that's not going to effectively change the level of the strings where the hammer hits them. Okay, so the purpose of that is just to make more positive contact with the bridge, get a better energy transfer. So you're exactly right, because of humidity fluctuations, that soundboard can relax and the bridge pins might, the strings might ride up those bridge pins a little bit. If the piano has a setup where the strings are bearing down on the bridge quite effectively, I think that happens less. But I see it more like on really old pianos that just haven't seen anything in a long time. I'll usually tap there, but I don't do a lot of maintenance tapping on the bridge when I'm tuning or voicing the concert grands. I kind of like to let it lie unless I'm really sure that that's going to make a positive difference. So hopefully that helps. Good question. When I turned the computer mic on, were you getting a lot of feedback through there, like bad feedback, or you just heard it, right?
It was just echoing, so I just turned it down.
Just when it's closer, it's a problem. I can't. I
Yeah.
only have one mic. Okay, now I'm gonna level the strings to the hammers now. This piano's been recently strung. The strings, as they come out of this A graph, like what you see Lannon's doing there, as the strings come out of that A graph, when the wire's when the wire is newly strung, it kind of curves down gradually. Okay, so on a lot of these, all we have to do is just snug it up, and it kind of defines the bend more right there, and it'll allow me also to get elevation difference on the strings so that they're level and and the hammer can hit all three at the same time. That maximizes the tone potential of the piano if we're hitting all three strings, with the same force. If you're just kind of glancing one is lower than the other, and you're just kind of glancing these two, you have a weak, anemic kind of a sound. So I think I'll steal that mobile cam from Landon and show you what I'm doing. This is a guitar trick. No, just a guitar.
Don't see the last time I saw it was on there.
No worries. Oh, are you done? So look at that. It's from the top. They're all lining up. And we check them as we string too to make tweaks, but it's a beautiful thing. See, I told you Landon was the man. And so that's the way they are. And then they're snug too. Cool. Okay, I'm going to start in the bass section. And I'm putting the camera down here because what we'll find here is the way that I determine whether or not the string is level is to lift the hammer up to the string and then pluck the string, something like this for the bass strings because I don't want to stain them, and see, you can hear if it's a long sound or a short sound. You can see if the hammer's making contact. So we don't need to do anything to the single string, so we're about 8 strings in. So that's without any contact. Sustained sound here, and then I'm going to make contact. So as I put increased pressure on that, those are about level. This one, the left one, is short. That's the left string. The hammer's muting it, but the right string is free to sing. This has nothing to do with the dampers. I'm pushing the pedal out of the way. So what it means is that I'm on this second note here. The right string is a little lower than the left, so I'm going to pull it up a little bit. And what I'm doing down here with my fingers, I'm smashing the jack in a certain way so it won't let off, and then blocking the hammer up against the string. That's kind of a skill in of itself, but a necessary one. And so if I remember right, the left string was singing. So let's see. Let's put you up here. You can see what I'm doing. Now, you've seen down what I'm doing down below. I think I'll just show you this, which is be good enough here. Okay. And all right. So I was on this note here. Short, long. So I'm going to lift the short one just a little bit. Doesn't take much with new strings. Just about there. Just a little more lift. Didn't quite get it. And someone asked about it here. I went a little far on that. So then if I want to go down, if I pulled it up just a little too far, I'll just kind of massage it down with the little piece of brass on my tool here. If I can locate that. This last night. Yeah. This is just a little piece of brass that fits in my handle here. So this will fit in my combo handle, and I just lifted it a little much, and I knew it was going to happen. It always seems to happen that way. So I'm just going to tap it down just a little bit. There, they're muting the same. Next one's good. The left one's a little lower. Our pedal has a bad squeak to it. So we'll have to figure that out later. There you hear the left one's short. Right one's long. You'll lift the left one. Again, left one. Oh yeah, and there was a string hitting a damper wire, but we're not going to fix that now because it won't affect what we're doing here. If you have a hard time blocking the hammer against the string, it might be because let off is too low. Some people will use a hook and pull the hammer up to the string, but I don't like that way. I just feel out of control. Like I can't get as clear a picture of what's going on. So if you haven't noticed, my pattern is I'll pluck them open first without the hammer touching, then I'll touch. Just helps me key on what's going on. So most all of these, I'm lifting the left string. That's pretty common. So the question is, well, were the hammers shaped? Because we shaped these hammers already. We added lacquer to them and filed them. So the question is, well, have they been shaped, crooked or whatever? And maybe so, but that's okay. It'll still be good as long as they're hitting the strings at the same time. Some people will use a bubble level on the strings to actually get it level with true level. But I don't think that's as important as, in fact, it really has no bearing on whether or not the hammer's going to hit both at the same time. The only advantage to that I can see is that if you use the una corda pedal, theoretically, if the piano's level and everything, that will help your voicing, your mating be preserved maybe in both positions, the regular position and when the action shifts over. Here we go. And again, I think I told someone on the chat, I prefer to lift rather than hit down because that's what's needed with the new strings. They bend down gradually. And these new wires bend easy. They don't need much pulling. After this has been done once, it's going to be very hard to do it more. So the left two are being touched, and the right one's not. I mean, I can visually look down through the strings and just take a peek at my hammer if it's a hammer thing, but to be truthful, I'm not worried if it is a hammer thing. If reasonable pulling of the string doesn't solve it, then I'll go to the hammer from there. I don't need to use my thing because these are plain wires. I can just pluck them with my fingers without worrying about staining it. So the middle one's just a little high, and I lifted that one already, so I'm just going to push that one down a bit. There. So again, the left two are just a little bit lower. I'm just going to kind of massage them up in this case. And the same thing happened to the other one. The middle one's a little high. And we'll pull up the sides a little more. You do this to the whole piano, and it sounds way better even when it's not in tune, hasn't been tuned yet. This does so much for having a good clean tone on a piano. And this can be done, you know, this is not super permanent, this mating of hammers to strings, strings to hammers. After a while, it becomes pretty permanent because the string cuts the hammer over time when it's played a lot. And it kind of does that last 10% of mating for you. Got to get some freebies in there where you don't have to do something. I got one there. Middle one's low there. You can hear if it's just barely kissing a string, it excites a different harmonic than the other strings. So sometimes you can have a note that sounds kind of bright to our ears, but not very powerful, just real thin, and this is the issue. And this does knock the piano horribly out of tune, so you don't want to do this unless you're planning on pitch raising, tuning afterwards. Maybe just tuning. You can also feel with your finger if the strings are relatively level. Again, just in case it's not clear, it's not the damper that we're checking, it's the hammer touching the strings. And when it makes that first contact, is it touching all three at the same time? I think some people, when they voice, will have a process that will make sure this happens twice. I think with this piano, we might end up doing it twice because we're going to put some needles into it. But before that, I'm contemplating hardening the hammers more. Maybe just in the treble sections, maybe overall. Well, actually the bass too, for sure. I'm just kind of still thinking through that, not sure what approach I want to take. I kind of want to hear it after this is done first, and maybe another tuning. Some people will have a procedure after they string where they just automatically bend all three of the strings up. I don't like to do that. But if I'm in the process of mating here, if I end up pulling up all three strings, that doesn't bother me. I kind of like the strings to kind of find their own way rather than forcing a lot of string massaging or prep when we string when we string pianos. Other people will do a lot of, kind of pre-working the bends into the wire. I just don't. Sometimes the A graphs, which are these brass cards, sometimes they're drilled crooked, so because I think they were drilled freehand almost, it seems like at some point, or with minimal jigging, so that you know, if it's crooked, then it's hard to get the strings to be level. Getting closer on this, and that I thought of that because this end one is leaning slightly to the left. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but this A graph here, it's actually drilled where it's, the left side wants to be kind of low. Squeaky pedals driving me nuts. You hear that? Have to figure out what's going on with that. Let's see. Let's put things here. So that one's the middle string. Now I've already aligned the hammers, of course. You got to do that before you do this. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it over again. This is that damper that last night isn't damping very well, and I'm not sure why yet. I wasn't sure if it was just because the strings aren't level or what. We'll figure it out. Sometimes it can be helpful to not, if you notice something, get pulled in that direction. Because a lot of things will resolve themselves when you just keep going through the process. I just wanted to bring that up to pitch, because it was acting like it was level, but then when I brought that string up to pitch, it raised it, and so then it was no longer level. There we go. A little higher. Some people have tricks how to, you can put a cloth down in the action so that you don't have to do it each individual one with your finger. Because it's kind of a weird skill to master at first. Kind of hard to wrap, get good at it. But once you get it, I think it's faster just to do it. Yeah. So I'm just kind of going back and forth. If you have a good piano, it can sound really bad when this mating isn't there. And then when you do it, it can totally transform things to just be beautiful, clear tone. I think this is one of the great secrets. It's not a secret. It's just people don't realize the full value of it. I think initially in voicing a piano, making it tone sound good. Sometimes they'll file hammers and they know they need to do that sometimes because the grooves are too long or deep, but then they won't go through and make sure all three strings are hitting. And so it sounds really bad after they're done. I don't mind doing this job. When you've done it a lot, this part's not too bad. It can be really frustrating on some pianos where it's hard to get the hammer to block. But other than that, it's fine. Just go there with this one. Working on the strings is a lot faster for me than working on the hammers and filing them, filing where the individual strings hit. But if I have an established piano that's already been prepped, that's what I'm going to do. And I'll listen to it in the same way and judge it, but then the difference is I'm filing felt instead of lifting a wire. When I get into the highest treble section, there's only so much I want to be pulling around. And at that point, if this doesn't work out by pulling the strings, I'll go to the hammer, even on a new piano. This one's giving me trouble. Almost got it. That one's just a little lower still. And when I pull that pitch up, should be right. No. You know, I don't want to break a string. That's happened before. When I was newer. Got it. I didn't think I was going to be able to do that one. Oh, do you need something? For which one? Oh, there's a chat question. Thanks. Chat question. Do I ever work on Hamburg Steinways? Yes. But I will say my training and working with the main difference to me, as far as from working on them, is going to be the hammers, different types of hammers, right, and how you voice them. And honestly, I mean, I've gone to the New York classes and things on voicing, but they don't teach us anything about the Hamburg hammers. And I would love to go to Germany and learn from the factory folks, which is a possibility, kind of on my bucket list. But when you work in concert halls, you're going to run into Hamburg Steinways for sure. And in fact, we have a competition coming up in Salt Lake not too long from now, where Steinway's going to send one Hamburg, one New York DE, and they'll actually send someone from their concert and artist department to come prep them initially, and they hand it over to me for the duration of the competition. And so that's interesting to see those Hamburgs come through. Usually they're fairly newer instruments that they pick. The competition, it's an international competition called Gina Bachauer. Also, I have a few customers that have purchased pianos from Hamburg, so I'll get to work on them then. But okay, one more section here. Oh, Len, you ready for lunch? Okay. Len's eating a sandwich, but after I finish this section, my car's in the shop, so Len's gonna take me to it, and we'll take a little break at that point. I could fake this by just pushing really hard on the hammer, but don't worry, I'm not doing that because it doesn't make it sound any better if you fake it. Yeah. This top section is not too bad on this piano. It's pretty matching up with the hammers pretty well. For me, it really helps to pluck these open first, and then touch, because sometimes the sustain is so short on these notes that it's hard to tell whether or not it's hitting it or not. It's kind of a different sound. think that was pretty good, actually. I think the middle might be a little. There we go. There. So next on the process is to then retune it, and we're going to put a fairly good tuning on it this time, so it sounds good. And then we'll make a judgment call. We'll fix some damper issues. We'll make a call whether or not to harden hammers more or to continue voicing at that point. And so that's where we are. But I think right now we'll take a break. But thanks for joining the stream. We'll catch you around.